One time for the one time.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, it's that time again. I am your host of the Trust Me, I'm Not an Expert podcast. My name is Jay. Over there is big homie Tone. Tone,
Ease on down the road.
we are getting into possibly the best show of the year, and it's early, so I'm just going to say it now. Last of Us.
Hands down.
HBO's
Hands
The Last
down.
of Us. Tone, I don't know if you know about this, but the actual video game is one of my favorite video games to ever come out
As is mine, sir.
in my adulthood.
As is mine.
And when I got news that Neil Druckmann was going to partner with Craig Mazin and they were going to make The Last of Us, and HBO was going to put a lot of money behind it, I was like, it's going to be great because they're doing it right. They got the showrunner, they got the actual creative director from the game to write the show, direct some of the shows, and they got a real showrunner, Craig Mazin, who did Chernobyl. And so I had absolute faith in the show, and the show has not let me down. But this is going to be a treat for me, Tone, because I don't think I've ever talked to you about the show.
I don't think we've partaken in conversation yet.
Yeah,
James.
so I actually just want to open it up and just, we're one episode away from the season finale. And you and I have both played the game. So we have an idea of how the show is going to end. We got an idea. However, what have you thought of the show so far?
First off, all the nods to the game in regards to the nostalgia of it, very well placed. It wasn't, a live action show trying to overtly be a game. It was just a great story taken and used in the right context. I love the show. The cast is amazing. The acting is impeccable.
Oh, man.
It's just everybody is bringing their A game. Everybody. It was good to see. She played Olivia in Fringe.
Yeah.
I can't think of the actress's name, but it was good to see her. In the earlier episodes, I thought her chemistry with Pedro was very, very good, and her, leaving him with, make sure you save her and. Save the girl and everything, and I loved it. I love the show. I love how it builds, over time, and they're building this arc of this relationship with the man who lost his daughter and a girl that honestly for a while she felt like she didn't belong anywhere. And I think it's great. What you called it the lone wolf and cub.
Yeah, lone wolf and cub trope. Yeah,
love it.
You're talking about Anna Torv, and Anna Torv's the homie. She when she got cast, I was like, oh, perfect. I could see her playing that role, right? And I think the reason why the show works so well as a video game adaptation is because the video game is episodic.
Agreed.
It you don't really notice when you're playing it, but I'm replaying it now. After 9-10 years, that's my original playthrough. And I'm playing it as the show goes. And what I noticed is that first of all, there's 10 chapters in the show in the game. I didn't know that. I just played the game, right? But there's 10 chapters. And each chapter, for the most part, is an episode.
Yes.
And in the game, as you are going through chapter to chapter, you're going to a new setting. And in a new setting, you are being presented with new characters, new character development, new problems, new settings, new all that. So it creates a situation similar to a show where you're not getting the same thing every time. You're getting a new experience every time. And more importantly, in this type of game or show, the true danger, which in this case will be the cordyceps zombies, or the infected, as they are correctly called, they're not really the true danger. It's really
just the fungus.
It's really just the people that have been really the true danger.
Agreed.
And the creators called this game, just the story itself. They called the story a love story. And I don't know if you agree with that, because I never really thought of it that way. But it is a love story. It's a love story between how far you would go for someone that you love. How fucked up will you do? How fucked up shit will you do, right? And as Joel and Ellie kind of come together as a family throughout this show or throughout the game, they end up doing some fucked up shit. And as a player, you don't really see it that way. But as a show, it really works because you're less desensitized when you're playing a game to violence.
Yeah.
But when you're watching it, it's kind of different. So, for example, the very first episode is after Joel's daughter dies, and they fast forward 20 years.
Right.
They go to the quarantine zone in Boston, right?
Right.
In the game, in the quarantine zone, how you find out that shit ain't really all good is you're walking through the streets and the armed guards shoot people on sight because they scan them and they're infected, and they shoot them right on sight.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, okay, that's kind of fucked up, but you keep it moving.
Because it's a game.
You can't really do that in the show.
No.
So what they do in the show, they show the little boy crossing the wastelands. He comes into the quarantine zone. He's all dehydrated and shit. They let him in.
He's tired.
He's so tired. They scan him. And, you get the red light. The audience doesn't really know what the red light means, but we know what that means. And they don't show it. But
it's implied.
But
you realize what happens a few minutes later.
Right, because they focus on, they show Joe, played by the boy Pedro Pascal.
Pedro, get the check.
And they're literally just burning bodies, like, for work, right? And one of the extras goes up to the Joel, and she's like, yo, I can't do this one. And Joel looks, and it shows the little boy's shoes, like they focused on early, and you see it that it's the boy, and he burns the body. And that is the same effect. Two different ways of doing it, but the exact same effect. And it's just so cool to see how they did it, man. Like, I would say the biggest difference from between show and game, where they got the same effect but totally different ways, was the third episode. The one that had Nick Offerman in it and Murray Bartlett.
Yeah.
In the game, that's totally different. Bill and Frank, right? In the game, you go to Bill's town. Bill's this crazy ass dude. He gives you a shotgun. He tells you how to make pipe bombs or little Coke can bombs or whatever, nail bombs. And then you're like, yo, I need a truck. He goes and y'all go to the. He's like, yo, there's a truck battery in the school gym. Let's go there. And you got to fight a bloater. You fight the bloater. And then after fighting the bloater, you go to a house that's near there, and Bill sees Frank hanging from whatever he hung himself from in the house. And they have a little moment there. And you can tell that shit really didn't end well between Bill and Frank. Right. Bill's kind of bitter at Frank. But anyway, he puts the battery in the truck. The truck is already there and the battery's in there. And then Ellie drives the car while you and Bill push it while y'all fighting off infected. And then it eventually runs, and then y'all take that to Pittsburgh.
Right.
In the show, completely different. They show Bill, like he's got huge MAGA energy. He's like the world goes to shit. He's hiding in his basement. He's hiding from the armed guards, and then like he fucking leave.
With an armory though.
With the whole
he's
armory
in his basement with an armory.
Yeah, and the whole he like hides and everyone leaves, and then he realizes the town is his, and the first thing he does is lock it down, and then just starts to survive. Right. And he's doing it in the best way possible. He's completely self-sustained. He has his own power, all this other shit, and really makes his own town his town. And then it shows that he meets Frank, and it tells this beautiful love story of how they lived this whole 20 years together. They eventually meet Anna Torv's character, and Pedro Pascal as well.
Yep.
And they're having dinner outside, right? And they're talking about how they're going to be trading with one another and all that. While Bill's got a gun under the table pointed at Joel, right? And Joel's like, "Yo, I need you to put that gun down for real," right? And it was a cool episode. There's very little action in that episode. There's one time where raiders try to get the town, and Bill fights them off. He gets shot. Frank stitches him up.
He set up traps all around the town.
Yeah, and they got burned like crazy. But yeah, and in the end, by the time that Joel and Ellie get there, Bill and Frank have already made the decision to take themselves out, but they did it on their own terms because looks like Frank has some kind of terminal illness.
He did.
Yeah, and he was like, "Yo, I just can't do it anymore. I'm just gonna leave. I need you to poison me, and this is what I'm asking you to do." And then he's like, "All right," and he does it. They have this nice day together. He gives them like a whole shitload of pills with the wine, but he didn't tell them that he took it too.
Well, it was not just the pills, but it was poison in the wine.
Yeah, no, he put the pills in the wine. He crushed the pills up, put it in the wine, and then they drunk the wine. And from there, he wrote a little letter to Joel saying like, "Yeah, Joel, if you find this, here's what I leave to you. But, he was pretty much the only reason why I was living. You and I both need to protect people. That's what you and I do. I really never really liked you, but at least I respected you, Yeah. And it was one of those things where the heroes in the end still got the truck through Bill, but it was a totally different way. And it was so effective. And I fully expect that episode to win all the Oscars, all the Emmys.
That'll probably be an Emmy.
All the Academy Awards. Like, whatever awards you want to get, I'll expect nominations and wins just off that episode.
Okay.
I feel like I'm rambling though. I want to get your thoughts on it.
You're not. It's a lot to try and put into one podcast like this. I mean, the series in its entirety has truly been something amazing to watch. From beginning to end. The thing I like about it, like I liken episodes of a very good series to songs on an album. Gone are the days where artists used to create something to where every single song could be a single. Now I got some very hot tracks and I got some songs that I did. We're just gonna throw them on there. We're gonna call it an album, right? If you go back far enough to where you had albums, anything where the guy's laying down on the cover, Michael Jackson, Luther Vandross, Lionel, anytime they lay down on the cover, the album is banging. Thriller by Mike, 9 songs, 7 singles, 7 number 1 singles,
Right.
out of 9 songs. I think the attention to detail that artists put in those songs back in those days, had we had that type of dedication to craft like we're getting from Neil with The Last of Us on HBO, it would make for some very good television.
As we're seeing, right?
As we're seeing.
You were telling me before we started that you really dug the cold open from the first 2 episodes.
The cold open, they're great because you didn't get that in the game. And I love how it showed the actual beginning, and they brought in the specialists to be like, check this out. We've never seen anything like this before. And the fear in her eyes, you knew what was going to happen. And if you played the game, you already know what the outcome was, but just to see it on her face, because, we all was curious, what was people's reaction at the beginning of this?
Right. And did you see what she did? Like she investigates the body, she opens the mouth, and she sees the cordyceps fungus coming out of it. She pulls back, she's kind of terrified, she leaves, and she's, in another room. She's trying to collect herself for what she just saw, because she is the lead scholar for fungi. I believe the actual term is a mycologist. I think that's the actual term for it.
Right.
But she was like
Budapest?
the lead.
Where was she at?
Indonesia.
Indonesia. Okay.
Yeah. She was like the lead professor at Indonesia, right?
Right.
And
she thought she was in trouble when they first came for her.
Yeah, she was like, did I do something wrong? He was like, no. And she just looked so confused and scared, right?
Puzzled. She's like, I deal with plants and fungus.
So fungus, yeah. And as soon as she was like, yo, tell me about the person. And they were like, yeah, this lady just started attacking her workers. Her co-workers.
And it was in a big factory.
And she was like, big factory. He was like, okay, who did she bite? He's like, she bit 5 people. We caught those guys. They've been in quarantine. They turned. We killed them. And she was like, okay, but who bit her? And they're like, we don't know. We still looking. And then you saw the look on her face at that point.
Ooh.
And he was like, what do you suggest? And she was like, and this was cool because they were talking in Indonesian, but the word was the same.
The subtitle.
But the word was the same. She said, boom. Bomb the city, right? She just said, boom, right? She said, bomb the city. And this is Jakarta. This is one of the largest cities in the world. This is the capital. She's like, yo, bomb the city, bomb everything. And then she said, can I be with my family? Because she know what this means. She knows the world is done.
We out.
Cooked, right?
We out.
It's that the show is explaining the seriousness of not only the downfall of humanity in this instance and what this cordyceps fungus can do. Because in the previous episode, the very first one, they have a little TV show, and the guy, I recognize the actor, because he's played in a couple stuff. John Hanna, he plays Dr. Newman. He's an epidemiologist, right? And he's talking on this talk show, and one guy is like, yeah, pandemics can happen, blah, blah, blah. And this is interesting because as a world, we just came out of a pandemic, right? And he's explaining, what we already know as far as like how it can be kind of detrimental to society and all the stuff and how we need to protect ourselves. And then he just like, yo, you over here talking about viruses, but what about fungi? We don't have no antibodies for that. If that happens, we're done. We don't have any science for that. And he's saying, and he alluded to if the planet was to change temperature, then the cordyceps could possibly mutate in order to
for the higher temperature, and if that's the case,
and to order to manifest themselves in warm-blooded animals. Because right now they can only do ants, right?
Right.
He said, but however, if it does that, he said there's no cure, there's no vaccine. There's nothing we can do. We're done. So in both cold opens, you have 2 experts from 2 different sides, one in the 60s, one in present day, from 2 different cultures, telling you the seriousness of this. In the game, it's serious because you're playing it. But to see it in the show, it just adds another layer, right? And that's what I really like about the show. It just continues to add layers. It adds things to the game that you probably wouldn't have gotten. Right? Did you know there's people that still, to this day, who played the game, didn't know that Bill was gay? It's fucking hilarious.
But those people are the same people who don't take the time out to actually, read some of the content. They just try and
I thought it was that
buttons
too.
and go through the game.
I thought it was that too, right?
You got to pay attention to detail.
I thought it was that. I wanted to give them the benefit of the doubt. I thought it was that. But peep game. I'm playing the game, right? So I'm re-seeing scenes, right? I'm not reading stuff. I'm seeing what the game is presenting to you. There are two explicit things that happen after you get the battery and you fight the first bloater, right? Okay. First thing is that the look on Bill's face when he sees Frank hanging, like he's like, yeah, that's him. Only him will wear a ridiculous shirt like that. And then he's like, he explicitly says he was my partner, right?
That's a giveaway.
He says that. After that, the same scene that happens in the show happens in they took it from the game almost beat for beat. When they're driving to Pittsburgh, Ellie finds some gay magazines that she stole. She stole two things. She stole a comic book that she reads that you find throughout the game.
Right.
But she also saw a gay magazine and she makes some jokes. She's like, oh my God, how do you walk around with that thing? And he's like, Ellie, don't read that. And he's like, I guess Bill won't eat this. She throws it out the window. It's like, and she's like, later, dude. Right. That's in the game. Beat for beat. So it's not like, oh, I didn't read that extra piece of lore. It's literally like people just, being uncomfortable with seeing gay people, I guess. I don't know. I made fun of some friends after I found out that they didn't know that Bill was gay. I was like, dude, I think you got a problem. Like I think you're like secretly homophobic. Like this shit was, I say, Ellie's gay, right? Like, that, right? And he's like, yeah, I know. I was like, okay, just making sure. Cause these are signs. And if you can't read the context, like we got some problems. Like this is, you know what I equated it to? What? I say, you know what you sound like right now? You sound like these white people that say they don't see color when they see some racist shit happen. And they were like, I didn't see anything.
Blind is on like the police horse in New York.
Bro, that's an aside. But yeah, man, we're 9 episodes in. We got 1 episode left. Do you think they'll do the same ending?
I don't know because...
Sorry, 8 episodes in. We got 1 episode left.
Yeah, so 1 episode left. I don't know if they're going to give us the game ending because the game ending did not suggest a part 2.
I'm gonna push back on that on you because the whole point of part 2 was the ramifications of the final decision in part 1.
But we're talking the game, so from the aspect of how does that translate?
First of all, they're already doing a season 2 because the show is successful, and Craig was like very upfront on some, like when it premiered, he was like, yeah, it depends on how the show is received. We'll see how it goes. And by the 3rd episode, it was like, yeah, it's greenlit. So they're doing a season 2. And did you play part 2?
That's just it. I know I played part 1. I can't remember for the
part 2 came out like 4 years ago.
No, I didn't. I know I didn't play part 2.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I am going to strictly just say that part 2 exists because of the final decision that was made in part 1. It is the whole basis of it. And from a show standpoint, the last episode, for instance, that was the show where Ellie is taking care of Joel. It's also akin to in the game where you take control of Ellie for the first time. Very, very surprising.
Yep.
But in that episode, her opposition recognizes her because someone in their camp died, and it turns out to be the same person that Joel killed when he got stabbed.
Yep.
Ramifications, right?
Ramifications.
It's similar to that. That's why part 2 exists.
Okay. Understood.
There were choices made in part 1.
That people deal with in part 2.
People felt that, and those people ain't just gonna go away. You get it? So that's what part 2.
Like I'm really curious what happened to the town where the brothers were hiding, and they got towards the end where they had them cornered in the house, and then the ground blew up, and then like all of the people that were under.
To my Kansas City.
Is that where it was?
That's Kansas City.
Kansas
So
City.
When little difference in the game is Pittsburgh. In the show is Kansas City.
Got you. So did anybody live from that? Did anybody get away?
Probably not. City's overrun. And that 2 little episode piece, I really like that 2 episode piece for a couple reasons. It shows from the antagonist standpoint of view, that chick who was like really deadbeat on finding the 2 brothers.
The one for sure that killed her brother.
Right, got her brother killed. Yeah. It really showed how she took her eye off the ball. Right? That the whole Kansas City revolution or whatever, what happened is that, they took out Fedra. And Fedra, even though they were very totalitarian, very fascist, they served a function. They killed the infected. They kept the city safe. Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So she got so gung-ho on finding the 2 brothers that, she took her eye off the ball.
She took out security. You took out the police.
No. They could do the same thing. You see the violence. They can handle niggas. That wasn't the problem. The problem was, and you literally see it in the very first episode where you get to Kansas City, the dude with the beard, like her second in command.
Yeah.
They go to some basement. He opens the door and you see the ground doing this up and down earthquake sinkhole type shit.
Yep.
And she's like, yo, lock it up. Don't tell nobody. He's like, yo, we got to deal with this. She's like, after we get old boy. Right? Again, took her off the ball. Her taking her off the ball, Kansas City got overrun. I really like that notion. In the game, it's completely different. In the game, you get ambushed in Pittsburgh. You run into the brothers. You find the underground path, whatever, the same way that they did
right
in the game. But it's not an organized group coming after them specifically. They're just killing anyone that's there. Because they're just flat out raiders. Their motivation is
it's just folks at posts around the way.
Their motivation is strictly like, run your shit. Like, I'm going to kill you to see what you got on you. Right? That's what that is. It's straight up like robbery and raiders and burglary. That's all it was.
Bunch of Debos. What you got on my
in this one, and in the show, it's a lot more context. It's a lot more. You get more story, right? Also, did you know the dude with the beard, her second command, that is the voice actor for Tommy, Joel's brother,
in the game?
Yep.
Full circle.
Also, if you're paying attention, in the last episode that we just saw, the other second in command, that's Troy Baker, and Troy Baker is the voice actor for Joel in Last of Us, the game.
The second in command at the town where
in the very last episode we just saw, the one where Ellie had to handle that dude.
The one, yeah, she caught him in the neck with the cleaver.
Yes.
That's
Troy Baker.
And
the skinny dude.
And he didn't have a lot of lines.
Right. Yo, he does not look like that in real life. Like, I barely recognize him because he is lanky and stuff like that, but he real debonair, real fly. Like, ever since Last of Us, he got all the work. So
he got the check.
So
baby.
he looks fly every time you see him. Like, they had him looking so dusty. I was like, yo, is that Troy? Also, Ashley Johnson, who plays Ellie, she's going to be in the show too. I haven't seen her yet, so she should be in the show in some kind of way. She'll be in the next episode.
It was really dope last episode when because I recall it in the game with the whole cafe catching on fire and them having to fight through that.
Yeah,
the interior, the seats being red.
Yeah,
in the restaurant.
Nailed it,
bro. The attention to detail alone. Again, yeah. You know what? That's just a slight tangent. shout out to HBO for, as opposed to just putting out a bunch of shows and buying up a bunch of stuff, we're going to invest in quality shows. We're not going to give you 75 shows. We're going to give you 7 shows that you can't stop watching. And you love watching them over and over again because you miss stuff in the detail. Just how much, they put into it. It's epic. I think it's smart.
I mean, that's been their model for a long time, right? Yeah, you know what it means when you turn on the TV and go, oh, like that. That's the HBO joint. Yeah. Like that's everyone. I mean, we live in a time where everyone's making content, right? But before we got to that time when Netflix was really trying to take over the world as a #1 streamer, they said from the jump, the CEO was like, we're trying to be HBO before HBO gets there. And they overspent on all those quality shows to get their numbers up. And we saw what happened, right? They had some great hits, right? Now they got the number base, so it don't matter. He's throwing money at anything now. It doesn't matter.
It does.
But they're not doing what HBO does, where they're, like you said, they are tailoring gems, right? They're just like, yo,
HBO is cherry picking.
Yes.
What they want. I think
very selective what they put their money behind.
I think a good cross, even though we're getting a little bit off of Last of Us, but it also shows to the integrity of the show and how it's done. I think a good in between Netflix and HBO, in my opinion, would be Amazon.
Why?
Amazon Prime will sneakily give you some very edgy shows that probably won a lot of film festivals. The Boys is very edgy, but I'm a fan.
No, The Boys is mainstream. Everybody loves The Boys.
Is it okay? To me, it's
everyone
edgy,
loves The Boys.
But I still like. But I mean, the content in it is not for all age groups. Clearly,
right.
Also, I like Wheel of Time.
You do like Wheel of Time. I couldn't get through it. I watched 2 episodes. I couldn't get through it.
I'm a real big RPG fan, which is why Last of Us appeals to me the way that it does in the game, and why I'm so much more appreciative of the live action.
I know you're a gamer at heart. I'm a matter of fact you right now, though. I'm gonna push my glasses up.
Push your glasses up, sir.
Be like, well, actually, sir, Last of Us is not an RPG. We know this, but
it's
I get what you're saying.
Role player game? Well,
no. Role playing games is where you and I can start a game, and when we finish the game, you and I have different characters. Like, for instance, like you play a certain role.
There are changes that happen to you throughout the game, but it doesn't give you the option in Last of Us. You just got to complete the task that they give you.
Right. So don't get. I mean, I understand what you're saying. Like, there is nuance. There's RPG elements in it. Like, there's crafting.
We'll say that.
There's crafting. You can upgrade your weapons, stuff like that. It's not an RPG though. Like my Joel when you beat the game and your Joel when you beat the game, they're the same. Everything's maxed out, and we're all the same person. Gotcha. Like, you're not more versed in stabbing people, and mine are more versed in shooting people. Like, the skill's the same, right? Okay. Those are RPG elements to kind of shake up the gameplay, but it's not a true RPG. I get what you're saying. That's what I'm saying. I'm just gonna matter of fact you real quick. I push my glasses up. Okay. I'm done now.
Pull your glasses back down.
Pull them back down. We're done. Yo, I do want to get your opinion on one thing, and then we'll get out of here. I know you played the game, but that was a long time ago when easy. Don't put too much on it. It was 10 years ago.
Don't put too much on it.
When that was a different time where when they sold DLC, they sold it like way after the fact. Did you play Left Behind?
I did not.
So you were surprised by the 2 episodes ago. Is that correct? The flashback episode? Where it's just Ellie?
Yeah, with her and her friend?
Yeah.
I was.
Okay. All right.
Yes.
Give me your thoughts on that. Because everyone I know played that part. So they knew about it.
So I didn't play that part, but I thought it was dope because you showed when Ellie got bit.
Yeah.
Because in the game before
that is 3 weeks or 2 weeks before the events of Last of Us. Left Behind. Yeah. And it's almost beat for beat what happens in the game. The game is the Left Behind DLC is 5 chapters. 2 of them are in the mall / in the quarantine zone. They're flashbacks. and the other one is part of the next episode where Ellie is finding a way to fix Joel. So you see her. She puts Joel in a mall. They're still hiding from people trying to get at him. She finds the med kit. She fights off dudes by herself. She stitches up Joel, but also at the same time, because it's told asynchronously. So chapter 1 is her literally getting away from when Joel got hurt in the school, and then chapter 2 is the flashback where Riley comes into her room and she's like, "Yo, I want to take you to the mall," or whatever. And then chapter 3 is her finding the med kit. Then chapter 4 is them back in the mall doing all that shit, the carousel, the photo booth, the Halloween store, all that's there.
That's crazy.
And then eventually they both get attacked, not by one. They got swarmed. They got attacked by a lot. But they get out, but in the fight, they both get bit. And almost a dialogue beat for beat is almost what Riley says to her at the time. And they both don't know what's about to happen. We know Riley dies, but Ellie doesn't know that she's immune yet, right?
Right.
And then in chapter 5 is when you have to fight off these last people trying to get at Joel, and then you kill him, and then you stitch up Joel, and that ends the DLC part.
At the end of episode 8, when she realizes it's Joel, and she hugs him, and she just looks at him, and she's just in this rage, because she thought she had lost everything. She thought that, the guys that went back, Joel couldn't defend himself, and Joel's dead, and she didn't have anything, and you took everything from me, and all the anger from everything she's experienced, from losing her friend, from the flashback that you just described, to the horse being shot, to her being in a cage and realizing that I'm with a group of people who eat other people.
Yeah.
And to just take all of that fear and anger and to go into this bloodlust, because the camera never shows you the pulp orange juice that she turns his face to. You get an inkling from the blood splatter and what she's covered in.
That's just great direction and great acting, right? Like Bella killing it, yo.
Amazing. But all the fans who never played the game, and for a handful of us that did, you were just waiting for when she saw him and she kept hugging him, "I miss you," or "I love you," anything along those lines, or something from Joel that would sound like he was consoling his daughter.
He said, "I got you, baby girl." Yeah.
The heartstrings.
Yeah.
You can't dry the eyes sometimes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yo, the show is making a lot of people cry like every episode.
Snot bubble.
And
do you hear?
I appreciate that
very much.
Because you know what? I'm gonna leave you with this. I'm gonna get out of here.
And
you know what I feel when I watch this show? I feel like those pretentious book readers, when something gets adapted to like a movie or a show, they're like, "Well, the book is so much better," blah blah blah. I feel like that now, because they come off so pompous and high eyebrow, right? And when I'm watching people who haven't played the game watch the show, I'm just like, yep.
You know what? I've taken it upon myself not to listen to people like that, because unless you sat your ragged ass down and tried to shoot a film, you have no idea what it takes to recreate and to capture and invoke that same type of response and emotion that an author was trying to
let the creators create.
And sometimes it's not for it to feel like you're reading a book, but they have to do certain things a certain way to get you to that point visually by what you see, and it doesn't have to be word for word or point for point along with what the book does or even what the game does. But this also, again, I keep bringing this back. This is a testament on how well, number one, the game was made for them to be able to adhere so much to that storyline and it still give you the same feeling and appreciation from watching it live action. Hats off.
Yeah, man. Absolutely.
Hats off.
Well, Next episode is in the finale episode is is oh, you didn't tell me. So you expect them to do the same thing, or you expected something different?
With what I've seen so far,
Well, no. You played the game, so you know how the game ends. So
I know how the game is.
So do you expect them to end it the same way? That's Troy Baker, right there. That's how he really looks.
Wow.
You see how dusty they have my man looking?
Dusty.
Anyway, we got for the people listening, we got a little bit of the HBO Max YouTube up, and Troy Baker's talking about his cameo and doing a little Q&A. Anyway, do you think they'll end the show like they ended Last of Us Part 1, the game? Because I'm going to tell you, so far, and you can see it right here, side-by-side comparison, scene for scene, it's almost right. Like, when you're talking about the close-up with Bella doing the stabbing, like, that's the game.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
The torture scene where Joel, like, really was, like, trying to figure out where Ellie was, like, it was that gruesome in the game. A little bit worse, actually, in the game. But anyway. Are they going to do it the same or no?
I think they will.
Okay.
I'm gonna go ahead and
Then this is we in for a finale. Then
yeah, it's gonna be good.
We are in for a finale. Well, here's to another great show, and you and I will talk about it. We'll do a little reaction to the season when it's completely done, and then you can tell me whether or not you want me to tell you about Last of Us Part 2.
I think I'm about to go spend a lot of money, so I can just go ahead and get this out of the way and just go play it.
I mean, you can.
I'm gonna go do
It's a PS4 game. It's not that.
Yeah, but who's
not that
buying
expensive.
PS4s right now?
The people who can't afford PS5s. It's a real thing. It's okay.
But all the games are on. You can't download it for PS5.
Sure.
Then just get the PS5.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. You hear that? Big Tone says, "Get your money up, poor
Get your
people."
money up.
And with that being said, this has been our reaction to episodes 1 through 8 of The Last of Us. HBO's The Last of Us.
Come on, HBO. Keep doing your thing.
Yo, I enjoyed it. I'm your host, Jay. That's Big Tone. We out.
Out.